She wrote "Help me" on a receipt, not knowing the mafia boss would see it at midnight. Midnight in Northbridge, New Jersey. The Comet Diner was not a star. It was a burnt-out rock, a relic of chrome and formica stuck to the side of a forgotten highway. The neon sign outside popped and hissed, casting a sickly pink glow over the wet asphalt. I was Eden Vale, and this was my cage from 10 p.m. until the sun bothered to show up. My hands were a roadmap of my exhaustion. They were cracked raw from the industrial lye in the dish soap, scalded by the hiss of the espresso machine's steam wand, and permanently stained with the smell of bleach and burnt coffee. The coffee itself was bubbling tar in the glass pot. Cheap stuff, the kind that kicks you in the gut but never quite wakes you up. I was wiping down the stainless steel counter for the 10th time, trying to make the shine last, but it was a losing battle. Brennan Cole, the night manager, slid up beside me. He moved with a weasel's oily silence and smelled like the friolator he never cleaned. He leaned in, his voice a greasy whisper against the constant hum of the freezer unit. "Eden, register's short again." I did not stop wiping. I did not look at him. I balanced it, Brennan, twice. Before the last rush. "It is not short." "It is now," he said, tapping the screen of the ancient POS system. $65.40. "Look, I hate to do this, but I gotta make up the difference from somewhere. If you cannot be flexible, I am going to have to cut your hours. You know how many girls want this shift?" Flexible. The word hung in the air, dirty and heavy as the grease trap. Flexible meant my tips. The few damp bills crumpled in my apron pocket, or worse, it meant dipping into the rent money I kept folded tight in my left shoe. He was skimming, and he was using me as his cover. He knew I needed this job. He knew about my brother, Micah, and the trouble that followed him like a stray dog. He knew I was trapped, and he liked it. The bell above the door chimed, a tinny, cheerful sound that cut through the heavy silence. A blast of cold, damp Jersey air rolled in, carrying the man who followed it. The diner had maybe 3 other occupants, a pair of truckers asleep in their booths, faces pillowed on their arms, and an old man reading yesterday's paper, nursing the same cup of coffee for 3 hours. This man was different. He did not belong. He wore a black suit, tailored so well it looked less like clothing and more like armor. Not a crease, not a speck of dust. Even in the grime of the comet, he was quiet, moving with a panther's deliberate stillness that seemed to suck the air out of the room. He did not look at the menu board with its peeling letters. He did not look at me. Not really. His eyes dark, assessing, and utterly unreadable, took in the entire diner in one sweeping, comprehensive glance. The exit, the kitchen door, Brennan, the sleeping truckers. He saw everything. He chose the last stool at the far end of the counter, the one with the vinyl seat split open like a wound, showing the yellowed foam underneath. He sat with his back to the wall, a king surveying a kingdom of rust. I picked up the coffee pot, the handle hot and familiar in my raw palm, and walked over. Coffee. His voice was low, smooth gravel, a sound that vibrated in the air. Black, and a slice of the apple pie, warmed, if you have it. I poured. My hand was steady, a waitress's trained steadiness, but I felt the energy in the room shift. The diner was not just tired anymore. It was holding its breath. I turned to get the pie from the rotating case, and my heart seized. Through the plate glass window, past the hissing pink neon, a truck had parked across the street, a dark blue pickup, lifted, with fog lights that were just a little too bright. Dale Mercer's truck. My stomach hollowed out, a sudden, cold vacuum. Dale, fired from the Northbridge PD for excessive force, which was just a polite way of saying he had nearly beaten a man to death during a traffic stop. My ex. The man who collected no's like trophies and refused to believe any of them applied to him. My phone, tucked deep in my apron pocket, buzzed once, a heavy, angry vibration. I did not need to look. I knew the message. I pulled it out anyway, shielding the cracked screen with my body as I microwaved the pie. "I know when you get off." My hand started to shake then, really shake. I fumbled the pie plate, the ceramic clattering against the microwave door. The man in the suit watched me. His gaze was not kind, not exactly. It was not sympathetic. It was just focused. I grabbed the green guest check pad, my fingers suddenly thick and stupid. I scribbled the total for the pie and coffee, $8.30. I stared at the thin paper. Brennan wanted 65. Dale was outside. The walls of the diner, the smell of the bleach, the drone of the freezer, it was all closing in. I gripped the little pencil, the one worn down to a stub, tethered by a dirty string. My handwriting was jagged, a seismograph of my fear, on the thin paper, right near the bottom margin where it would be shadowed by the plate's rim. I wrote 2 words. Help me. I looked up. Dale was still in his truck, just a silhouette against the streetlights. I added 2 more. He's outside. I slid the pie onto the counter. It was too hot, the crust limp. I placed the check face down, tucking it just under the rim of the plate. I pushed it toward him. Here you go. He did not move for a second. He looked at the pie, then his hand, clean, with sculpted nails and a heavy gold ring on his pinky finger, reached for the check. He turned it over. I watched his eyes. They did not widen. He did not gasp or look up at me in alarm. He just stopped. A fractional pause, a stillness so complete it was louder than a shout. His gaze lifted, met mine. It held for 1, 2, 3 seconds, then it flicked to the window, to the dark blue pickup across the street. He understood, instantly. He folded the receipt slowly, deliberately, making a sharp crease, and slid it into the inner breast pocket of his suit. He took a bite of the pie. Then he reached into his trousers and placed a coin on the counter. It was not a quarter. It was a heavy silver dollar. Old and gleaming under the fluorescent lights, it made a solid, definitive sound. It was not payment. It was an answer. He said nothing. Eden, Brennan's voice snapped from the kitchen doorway, making me jump. We are doing inventory, now. Brennan, it's midnight. I have tables. I motioned vaguely to the sleeping truckers. Now, Vale, or do not bother coming in tomorrow. It was a setup. Get me in the back room, away from the windows, away from the few witnesses. I looked at the man in the suit. He was eating his pie, calm as a statue in a storm. The bell on the door chimed again. This time it was Dale. He filled the doorway, big, beefy. His face flushed a dangerous, blotchy red with beer and rage. He ignored Brennan, who visibly shrank back, his eyes, small and furious, locked on me. Eden, we are going to talk. I am working. Dale, you cannot be here. You have to leave. My voice was a thin reed, and I hated it. I said. He took a step forward, his heavy work boots loud on the cracked linoleum tiles. We are talking now. Brennan vanished into the kitchen. Coward. I started to backpedal, moving slowly toward the kitchen, toward the rear exit. My heart felt like it was trying to punch its way out of my ribs. She is busy. The low, gravel voice cut through the diner. Dale stopped. He had not even noticed the man at the counter. Cassian Vieri stood up. He had not pushed his stool back. He just rose, a smooth, fluid motion that seemed to defy gravity. He was not as tall as Dale, not as broad, but he seemed to take up all the space in the room. She is busy, Cassian repeated, his voice perfectly level, almost conversational. Can you wait? Dale laughed, a short, ugly bark that was all aggression. Who the hell are you, her new boyfriend? He looked past Cassian, at me. This the trash you are with now, Eden. The air went thick, metallic. I knew that look on Dale's face, the tightening of the jaw, the slight flare of his nostrils. It was the look he got right before he threw something, right before he hit. I glanced at the back door. I could make a run for it. The man, Cassian, tilted his head, just a fraction of an inch, a tiny, almost invisible gesture. Stay still. Dale's patience snapped. Forget this. He lunged, not at Cassian, but at me. He raised his hand, a big, meaty fist, You are coming with me." He never made it. The neon sign outside flickered, just once, buzzing loudly. In that half-second of strobe light, Cassian moved. He was not fast, not in the way Dale was. He was just precise. He stepped inside Dale's clumsy, looping swing, parried the arm with one hand, and spun behind him. His left arm snaked around Dale's throat, his forearm pressing against the carotid. His right hand clamped onto the back of Dale's head, locking it in place. It was clean. There was no grunt, no crash of chairs. Dale just froze, his eyes bugging out in sudden, terrified surprise, his feet dangling half an inch off the floor, a clean, silent, perfect chokehold. Cassian held him there for a count of 3, letting the fight and the oxygen drain out of him. Dale's face went from red to a sickly, mottled purple. His hands clawed uselessly at the arm around his neck. Then, just as Dale started to go limp, Cassian loosened his grip and dumped him. He did not throw him, he placed him hard into the booth Cassian had just left. Dale landed with a wet whoosh of expelled air, clutching his throat, gagging and coughing. Cassian Vieri straightened his suit jacket. He smoothed his cuffs. He looked at me, my back pressed flat against the pie case, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. He picked the silver dollar off the counter and held it out to me. When I did not take it, my hands frozen at my sides. He placed it gently on the counter in front of me. "You are not going home alone tonight," he said. His voice was just as calm, just as level as when he had ordered his pie. Cassian Vieri did not look back at Dale, who was still wheezing and gasping for air in the vinyl booth. He did not acknowledge Brennan, whose pale, terrified face was peeking out from the kitchen pass-through window. He looked only at me. "Your shift is over," he stated. It was not a suggestion. He placed a crisp $100 bill on the counter beside the silver dollar. It more than covered the $8.30 check. It covered the $65 Brennan had tried to extort from me. With interest, it was a message. I fumbled for my coat, a thin, threadbare jacket hanging from a hook by the kitchen door. My hands were buzzing, a high-frequency vibration from the adrenaline. I felt numb, disconnected, as if I were watching myself move from a great distance. I slid my arms into the sleeves and followed him. The bell above the door chimed, a small, bright sound announcing our escape into the cold, damp night. The parking lot was a sea of cracked asphalt glistening under the pink neon hiss of the Comet's sign. The air was thick with a cold drizzle, the kind that soaks you through before you even realize you are wet. My old '98 Civic, with its one gray fender, looked pathetic near the exit. Dale's massive blue pickup truck was still parked across the street, a silent, hulking threat. Cassian walked me toward the darkest corner of the lot, to a car I had not even noticed. It was a sedan, black or maybe a dark charcoal gray, impossible to tell in the gloom. It was so clean that the fine mist beaded on the waxed surface like tiny diamonds. It was sleek, understated, and screamed money in a way Dale's loud truck never could. He pressed a button on a key fob. The locks disengaged with a heavy, solid thunk. It was a sound of finality, like a bank vault ceiling. He opened the passenger door for me. The door was heavy, impossibly heavy. I had to use my shoulder to help pull it open. I slid inside, landing on leather so soft it felt like sinking into butter. The air inside smelled of clean leather, polish, and a faint, spicy scent like sandalwood. He rounded the car and got in the driver's side. He closed his door. The sound it made was a deep, satisfying thud. And just like that, the world vanished. The hiss of the neon, the distant drone of the highway, the patter of the drizzle, all of it was gone. We were encased in a cocoon of absolute, heavy silence. I ran my fingers over the window. The glass felt thick, almost an inch thick. "This car is armored," I whispered, the words sounding too loud in the stillness. He started the engine, which purred to life with a low, powerful rumble I felt in my chest more than I heard. He looked at me. In the dim green and white glow of the dashboard, his features were sharp, cut from stone. I will take you home, Eden, he said, his voice that same smooth gravel, impossibly calm. This is not an obligation. It is a choice. My choice. I could only nod, my throat too tight to form words. He put the car in gear and pulled out of the parking lot, his movements economical and precise. We drove past Dale's truck. I stared straight ahead, refusing to look at it, but I felt its presence like a physical weight. Riverside Flats, I managed to say, my voice sounding thin and reedy, on 4th Street. He nodded, already turning in the correct direction. He knew the city. He drove through the dark, rain-slicked streets of Northbridge with an easy confidence, his hands resting lightly on the steering wheel. 1 at 10, 1 at 2. The silence in the car was a tangible thing. It was not empty. It was expectant. It pressed against me, and suddenly, the dam of the last 6 months broke. The words just started tumbling out, quiet and ragged in the insulated bubble of the car. He's always there. Dale. He parks outside the diner. He texts me every night. He knows my schedule. I told the police. But he was the police for 12 years. They told me to be flattered. Cassian did not respond. He just drove. His eyes on the wet road. He was listening. He was not judging, not pitying, not interrupting. He was just receiving. And Brennan, my manager, he is skimming the register. He says it is short every week, and he threatens to cut my hours if I do not pay him the difference. He wanted $65 tonight. I need those hours. My rent is due in 5 days, and I am already short. I cannot lose this job. The words kept coming, spilling over each other. The biggest one, the one that sat like a stone in my gut every single night. My brother, Micah, he is young and he is stupid. He thinks he is a gambler. He got in deep with the Iron Serpents. The name tasted like rust and fear in my mouth. They were a local motorcycle gang, dealing in intimidation and small-time drugs, and they were not known for their patience. He owes them. I do not even know how much anymore. They keep adding interest, fees. He called me yesterday, terrified. They said they were done waiting. I finally ran out of air, out of words. I stopped, breathless, the echo of my own pathetic, tangled life hanging in the expensive air between us. I had just unloaded everything onto a complete stranger, a man who had dismantled an ex-cop twice his size without breaking a sweat, and who drove a car built to stop bullets. He was quiet for a long moment. He signaled, turning onto my street. The car's powerful headlights swept across the damp, crumbling brick facade of the Riverside Flats, a building that had given up on being respectable 40 years ago. He pulled the car to the curb. He did not put it in park. He reached into the inner breast pocket of his suit, the one where he had tucked my desperate receipt. He pulled out a slim, dark leather card case. He extracted a single card and handed it to me. The cardstock was heavy, like cream-colored linen. The letters were embossed, simple and black. Vieri Foundation. Below it, in smaller letters, housing and legal aid. "The foundation is my legitimate business," he said. His voice was steady, a deep anchor in my storm of panic. "It assists tenants who are facing difficult landlords." A bitter laugh escaped me. "My landlord is not the problem. He is gone. The problem is the letter I got last week." He turned his head fully to look at me. Letter? It looked official. From the Northbridge Harbor Commission, it said the building was condemned. Structural instability. It said we all had 30 days to evacuate. The Northbridge Harbor Commission, he repeated, not as a question, but as if tasting the words, filing them away. "It is just rumors," I rushed on, "but everyone is talking about it, this big new company, the Glass Harbor Consortium. They say some man named Sterling Cade is running it. They say he wants to sweep all of Riverside, level it, build a new port or luxury condos. The letter looks fake, but it scared everyone. Mrs. Petrovich in apartment 3B left 2 days ago. I think my landlord got one too, and just ran." He pulled the parking brake and killed the engine. The silence that rushed in was even heavier than before. "I will look at the letter," he said. "Thank you." I breathed. I felt lighter. Just saying the words out loud to someone who was not telling me I was crazy had lifted a physical weight. I reached for the heavy door handle. He got out of the car when I did. He stood on the cracked sidewalk, his gaze sweeping over the building. The front security door, its lock broken for months, was propped open with a soggy block of wood. The lobby light was, as usual, busted. "Apartment 212, so I said, leading the way into the gloom. He followed me up the concrete stairs. The air in the stairwell was cold and thick with the smell of old cooking grease, mold, and urine. His footsteps were completely silent behind me. We reached the second-floor landing. The fluorescent light at the end of the hall hummed and flickered, casting long, jumping shadows. I walked to my door. Number 212. I dug my keys from my apron pocket. I pushed the key into the lock. It did not go in. It stopped, hitting something solid. What? I frowned, pushing it again, jiggling it. It was blocked. I leaned in, squinting in the dim, buzzing light. It was glue. Someone had filled my deadbolt lock with super glue. "No," I whispered. My stomach dropped, plummeting cold and fast. I pushed against the door. It was solid, locked. I was locked out. And then I saw it, on the threadbare, filthy welcome mat that said home. There was a boot print. It was fresh. The mud was still damp. The tread was deep, tactical, like a combat boot. It was not Dale's work boot. It was not Brennan's worn-out sneakers. My heart, which had just begun to slow, hammered against my ribs, a painful, frantic bird in a cage. Cassian stepped in front of me, placing his body between me and the door. He did not curse. He did not look surprised. He simply pulled his phone from his pocket. He made a call. His voice was different now. Clipped, short, all business. "I am at Riverside, apartment 212. The lock is compromised. Possible entry. I want to sweep. Keep the scene. No noise." He listened for a second, then hung up. The hallway was freezing. The adrenaline from the diner was gone, replaced by a deep, shaking chill. The drizzle from outside had soaked my thin jacket, and I was shivering. The damp seeping into my bones, locked out. Dale, Brennan, Micah, and now this. Cassian turned to me. The flickering hallway light caught the angles of his face. He was not looking at me. He was seeing me. He saw the shiver that racked my body. Silently, he shrugged out of his suit jacket. The black wool was immaculate. It probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Before I could protest, before I could say a word, he draped it over my shoulders. It was heavy. The weight of it was a shock, a solid, grounding presence. And it was warm, so incredibly warm. Radiating his body heat, it smelled of him, that sandalwood and spice, and something else, just clean, sharp, and male. It enveloped me like a shield. As he settled the jacket on my shoulders, his hand brushed the back of my hand, a light, accidental graze of his fingertips against my raw, chapped skin. A jolt shot up my arm. It was not a spark. It was a low-voltage current that went straight to my chest and seemed to restart my heart. My breath hitched. It was just a touch, but it was the first safe, intentional contact I had felt in, I could not remember how long. I stared up at him. I was suddenly terrifyingly aware of how close he was, in this dark, threatening hallway, standing next to this man who moved like a shadow. I was not afraid of him. The realization was more shocking than the glue in the lock. I felt safe. "You are not staying here tonight," he said. It was a flat, final decree. He spoke very little, but every word had weight. "Take the morning shift off. I have a lawyer at the Romaldi office. They will expect your call in the morning. They will look at the papers, the eviction notice. Your brother." Romaldi office. The name sounded expensive, powerful. I clutched the lapels of his jacket, pulling the impossible warmth tighter around me. "I cannot pay you," I whispered, the words small but necessary, "for any of this. I do not want to drag you into my mess." Cassian's dark gaze held mine. For the first time, I saw something shift in their depths. Not sympathy, not pity, something harder, recognition. "You are already in their mess, Eden," he said. his voice quiet, but carrying down the empty hall. "You just did not know it." He nodded once, a sharp, respectful gesture, and then he turned and walked away. He did not say where he was taking me. He did not wait for his sweep. He just left, as if his words had already settled the matter. He moved down the hallway, his expensive shoes making no sound on the concrete floor, a shadow disappearing into the deeper darkness of the stairwell. He left me standing there, alone in the buzzing, flickering light, wearing his jacket. The heavy wool was still warm. The scent of sandalwood and danger lingered in the damp, musty air. I leaned back against the wall, my hand resting near the violated lock of my door. I was cold, exhausted, and terrified. But I was no longer alone. I breathed in the scent from his jacket, holding it in my lungs. I knew, with a sudden, bone-deep clarity, that my life had just turned a corner. I had written "Help me" on a receipt, and whatever had found me was not just a man, it was a new orbit, and it was pulling me in, fast. I woke up to the smell of coffee I had not made. It was 9 a.m. I was in a place that did not smell like mold or old grease. It was a corporate apartment, beige and sterile, with furniture that still had the tags on it. Cassian had brought me here last night, to a high-rise downtown that his foundation kept for. Situations. He had handed me a key card, told me his driver would pick me up at 8:30, and left. He had taken his jacket. I missed its weight almost immediately. I had showered, scrubbing the diner's grime off me, and fallen onto the bed, too exhausted to process the glue in my lock or the man who had neutralized Dale Mercer like he was taking out the trash. Now, a man in a different, equally expensive suit was waiting for me in the lobby. He did not introduce himself. He just held open the door of another black sedan. We drove in that same heavy, insulated silence to a glass tower that scraped the sky. The Ramaldi office was on the 40th floor. The air was thin up here. The carpets were so thick my sneakers sank into them. I was led to a conference room with a view of the entire city, including the smudge of industrial haze that was my neighborhood, Riverside. A man who introduced himself as Mr. Ramaldi Sharp, gray-haired, and with eyes that looked like they were calculating billable hours, did not waste time with pleasantries. He had 2 stacks of paper on the polished mahogany table. "Mr. Vieri asked us to expedite this," he said, tapping the first stack. "Your eviction notice. It is a forgery, a very good one. The Northbridge Harbor Commission is a legitimate public entity, but this order," he held it up to the light, "did not originate from their office. The signature is scanned, the case number is fictitious. So I do not have to leave." I felt a small, hysterical bubble of hope. "Legally, no. Practically," Ramaldi shrugged. "The building's owner has disappeared. The commission is now claiming ignorance. You are in a legal gray zone. It is clear, however, that the entity known as the Glass Harbor Consortium has filed preparatory permits for that entire zoning block." He pushed the second stack of papers toward me. "This is more immediate. The Comet Diner. Brennan Cole, Mr. Vieri's people retrieved the register data from last night before Mr. Cole had a chance to wipe it." He turned a printout around. It was a list of transactions. "Mr. Cole has been voiding cash sales specifically, yours after closing out your drawer, then pocketing the difference. The $65 deficit he accused you of, he created it himself at 11:45 p.m. It is a classic, if clumsy, case of fraud." "So he framed me," I said, my voice flat. "Precisely. And as of this morning, Mr. Cole has vanished. His apartment is empty. His last paycheck was cashed 2 days ago. He disappeared, just like my landlord, just like Dale's police record. Pieces were being swept off the board." When I left the law office, the sun was bright and it hurt my eyes. Cassian was waiting by the sedan. He was not in the suit from last night. He was in dark trousers, a crisp white shirt, and a dark wool coat. He looked less like a mafia boss and more like an architect or a professor. But the stillness was the same. The danger was the same. "You are not going back to the diner," he said. He opened the passenger door. "Where are we going?" To see who owns the Harbor Commission, he said. We did not go to City Hall. We went to the Northbridge Public Archive, a massive, tombs-like building of granite and marble. It smelled of floor wax and decaying paper. We did not go to the computers. Cassian led me down to the municipal records, floor-to-ceiling rolling shelves of heavy, canvas-bound ledgers. He moved with a quiet, certain purpose. He pulled a ledger from 1992, incorporation filings. He flipped through the pages. I watched his hands. They were clean, the nails perfectly kept, the hands of a man who did not do physical labor. Yet I had seen them disable a 200-pound man. Here, he said, his finger landing on a name, Seaward Logistics, LLC. They filed the initial harbor petition. I have never heard of them, I said. You are not supposed to... He led me to a different section, tax records. He pulled another, dustier book. He found the corresponding file, Seaward Logistics, LLC. Its registered address was a post office box in Atlantic City. Its parent company was listed as Lattice Holdings. We cross-referenced Lattice Holdings in the corporate registry. It was an offshore entity, a ghost. It is a dead end, I said, the frustration making my voice sharp. Almost, Cassian murmured. He was staring at the page, at a small notation in the margin. Amended 2021 Capital Partner. He went to a third shelf, this one filled with more recent city planning binders. He pulled one. He found the amendment. Lattice Holdings had entered a partnership for urban development. The partner's name was Cade Urban Systems. Sterling Cade. I breathed. The rumor. The man who wanted to sweep Riverside clean. It was not a rumor. It was a plan. Seaward. To Lattice. To Cade. A chain of paper ghosts designed to look like public works. We walked back out into the sharp afternoon light. My head was spinning. It was too big. A lawyer had told me my eviction was fake, but a dusty book told me it was real. We got back into the silent, armored car. The drizzle had started again, painting the city in shades of gray. I stared at the windshield, watching the wipers sweep back and forth, a hypnotic rhythm. Brennan, Dale, the eviction notice, all of it, all connected to this one invisible, powerful man. My phone buzzed in my pocket, the one I had clutched all night. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened it. My blood did not just run cold, it froze solid. It was a picture, taken from across the street, grainy, through the rain. It was me last night, standing on the sidewalk outside the Comet Diner, looking up. Cassian was standing beside me, the neon light catching the sharp line of his jaw. Below the photo, there were 2 words. Shut up. The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the plush floor mat. I could not breathe. They saw us. They were watching us right then. Dale was just a clumsy, blunt instrument. This was something else. This was surgical. Eden. Cassian's voice cut through the panic. I looked up, shaking. He did not look angry. He did not curse. He did not ask who sent it. He already knew. He simply leaned across the console. He placed his hand on my shoulder. It was not a caress. It was not a hug. It was a grip, solid, heavy, and incredibly warm. He was grounding me, pinning me to the moment before I flew apart. They want you to feel alone, he said, his voice low and steady. They want you to feel exposed. That is how they win. That is their primary leverage. He met my eyes. You are not alone. His phone rang, the sound making me jump. He ignored it. My phone rang again, vibrating on the floor. Micah. I lunged for it, scooping it up, my hands fumbling with the screen. Micah, are you okay? Where are you? Eden, you have to help me. His voice was high-pitched, cracking with a terror I had never heard before. I messed up so bad. The serpents, they set the debt. It tripled. Eden. They said, I am out of time. They have me. Where? I yelled, my knuckles white on the phone. Where are you? Pier 17, the old cold storage, Eden. Please, they said they are done talking. The line clicked, dead. I was out of the car before I even registered the action. standing in the cold drizzle, gasping for air. I have to go. I have to get him. I have money. I have $300 saved. I can talk to them. Cassian was out of the car too, standing in my path, blocking me. He was immovable. No. You do not understand, I was frantic, pushing against his chest, which was like pushing against a brick wall. This is my brother. My blood, my mess. I can handle this. No, he repeated, his voice dangerously soft. He caught my wrists. His grip was not painful, but it was absolute. You cannot handle the iron serpents, and you never negotiate with creditors alone. He steered me back into the passenger seat. We go together. Pier 17 was a skeleton of rust and corrugated steel, jutting out into the polluted gray water of the harbor. The only sound was the cry of gulls and the low, industrial hum of the last few functioning freezer units. Cassian parked the sedan 50 yards away, in the shadow of a stack of forgotten shipping containers. 2 other men were there, waiting. They looked like Cassian, dressed in dark, functional clothes, silent and watchful. I had not seen them arrive. They just appeared. Wait here, Cassian said to them, and then he looked at me. Do not speak. Let me handle the transaction. He walked toward the loading bay of the cold storage unit. I scrambled after him. He did not tell me to stay back. He knew I would not. We stepped into the cavernous, freezing building. The air smelled of brine, ammonia, and old fish. It was dark, lit only by a few bare yellow bulbs caked in grime. Micah was there. He was sitting on a wooden pallet, his face pale and blotchy, his hands zip-tied in front of him. He looked 16 again. The man standing over him was not. He was huge, wrapped in scarred black leather, his bald head gleaming. This was Rook, the leader of the Iron Serpents. He was not alone. 4 other members flanked him, holding pipes and chains. They looked bored. He is late, Rook said, his voice a low rumble. He looked at Cassian, taking in the expensive coat, and then at me. And he brought his sister. I am here for the debt, Cassian said. His voice was calm, conversational, as if he were ordering coffee. The debt has escalated. Rook smiled, showing a row of stained teeth. He owed $5,000 a week ago. Now, it is 15 interest and a fee for my time. He kicked a small metal toolbox toward Cassian. You can put it in there. Micah was looking at me, his eyes wide with shame and terror. I wanted to run to him, but Cassian's presence beside me was a physical barrier, holding me in place. Cassian ignored the toolbox. He was looking at the small, cluttered folding table where Rook had his things. A half-eaten sandwich, a thermos, and a stack of papers, a ledger. That is the invoice, Cassian asked, nodding toward the ledger. Rook laughed. Yeah, we are professionals. See, we keep records. He picked up the top sheet, a poorly printed invoice. $15,000, due today. Cassian stepped forward. He did not look at the numbers. He looked at the bottom of the page. There was a faint purple ink stamp in a small box. Atlantic Compliance Agency. Cassian read aloud. He looked up, his eyes sharp. That is your oversight. Rook bristled, suddenly defensive. What about it, the ACA? They keep us legitimate. Private compliance. They handle our collection disputes. What is it to you? Cassian was perfectly still. I watched his profile, the calculating stillness. He was not seeing a biker. He was seeing a data point. The stamp, Cassian said, his voice quiet. He looked at me, and in that one glance the entire story clicked into place, horrible and perfect. It is the same machine. What? Rook said, confused. The die cast, Cassian said, his attention back on Rook. The numbering. The slight misalignment on the 7. It is identical to the stamp on her fraudulent eviction notice. He was not talking to Rook. He was talking to me. My eviction, Micah's debt. It was not 2 problems, it was 1. The Iron Serpents were not just a local gang. They were contractors. The Atlantic Compliance Agency was the muscle for Cade, using the Serpents to inflate debts and push people like Micah out of their homes. while Dale harassed me from the street and Brennan framed me at my job. It was a machine designed to sweep Riverside clean, one broken life at a time. Rook was just a cog, and he did not even know it. "I do not know what the hell you are talking about," Rook growled, sensing he had lost control of the room. Cassian did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He reached into his coat and pulled out a thick envelope, not a briefcase. He tossed it onto the steel table. It landed with a soft, heavy thud. "That is $5,000. Cassian said, "It is not a payment, it is a retainer. For your time." Rook looked at the envelope, then at Cassian, confused. Cassian walked over to Micah. He pulled a small, wicked-looking blade from his pocket and sliced the zip tie. He hauled my brother to his feet, pushing him roughly toward me. Micah stumbled into my arms. Cassian turned back to Rook. The temperature in the warehouse seemed to drop 10 degrees. His voice was no longer smooth gravel. It was flat, empty, and cold as the steel table. "The debt is frozen. From this moment, this negotiation is closed. If you speak to Micah again, if you look at him, if you even think about this side of the river." He let the silence hang for a beat. "You are touching me." He put his hand on the small of my back, steering me and my shaking brother toward the light of the loading bay door. The 5 bikers watched us go. Not one of them moved a muscle. Not one of them said a word. We walked out of the cold storage into the gray afternoon, leaving the smell of fish and fear behind us. After we dropped a shaking, silent Micah at the sterile corporate apartment after Cassian had a quiet, 5-minute conversation with him that left my brother pale, but nodding, Cassian took me somewhere else. We went to the Vieri Foundation building. It was not the glass tower of the Romaldi office. It was an older, limestone building downtown, solid and unassuming. He bypassed the offices, using a private key card for an elevator that took us straight to the roof. The door opened onto a flat, empty expanse. The night was cold, the air sharp and tasting of salt from the river. There were no chairs, no fancy patio furniture, just a low parapet wall and a view that stole my breath. We were high up, high enough to see the whole of Northbridge spread out like a circuit board of glowing lights. Across the black ribbon of the river, the harbor cranes were skeletal shadows against the sky, their warning lights blinking red. The water itself was a dark mirror, shattered by the golden reflections of the city. The wind was strong up here, whipping my hair across my face and cutting through my thin clothes. I still wore the shirt and jeans from yesterday. I felt raw, exposed, and utterly exhausted. Cassian stood near the edge, his hands in the pockets of his dark wool coat. He was a silhouette against the city lights. He was not looking at the view. He was watching me. "He's safe, Eden," he said, his voice carried by the wind. "My men will stay with him. No one will get to him." I nodded, wrapping my arms around myself. The relief was so sharp it felt like pain. "Thank you. For Micah." "It was not for him," he said simply. "It was for you." I walked to the wall. Standing a few feet from him, the cold stone bit into my palms. Below, the city was a distant hum, the traffic a remote river of sound. Up here, it was just us and the wind. "I do not understand any of this," I whispered, the words almost stolen from my mouth. The diner, the eviction notice, my brother's debt, that text message. This Sterling Cade. It is all one thing. They are trying to gut my entire life. "Yes," he said. "Why, because I live in a crappy apartment, because I work at a diner, I am a nobody. I have nothing." "You have a foothold," he said, turning to look at me. "You and your neighbors. You are in the way of their new port. You are a detail that needs to be erased, a line item on a budget." A hot, bitter shame flooded my chest. A line item, a detail. I thought of Dale, of Brennan, of every time I had to swallow my pride and just take it. I thought of the glue in my lock and the boot print on my mat. "I hate this," I said, my voice shaking. "I hate feeling like this. Like I am weak. Like I am just something to be pushed. I'm so tired of being the girl who needs saving. I pressed my forehead against the cold stone, the shame burning behind my eyes. I do not know why I am like this. I keep attracting it. Men who want to control me. Dale. He was just the loudest. I feel so stupid, so weak. The silence stretched. The wind whistled. I expected him to say nothing. I expected him to give me a solution, a legal file, a name. Vulnerable does not mean weak. His voice was low. Beside me, I had not even heard him move. He was standing next to me now, his shoulder almost touching mine. He was so warm, a furnace of body heat in the cold night. The wind was blocked by his presence, and the sudden stillness was startling. It means you are a target. He continued, his gaze fixed on the dark harbor. There is no shame in being a target. The shame belongs to the one who aims the weapon. I turned my head to look at him. His profile was sharp, relentless. How do you do it? I asked. How do you stay so calm? I am not calm, he said. He looked down at me. I am focused. We stood there, shoulder to shoulder. I could feel the heat radiating from his side, seeping through the fabric of my shirt and his coat. It was a solid, living warmth. I leaned into it, just a fraction of an inch, and he did not pull away. The contact was electric, but it was not the jagged jolt of adrenaline or fear. It was a deep, steady hum. Let me help you. Eden, he said, his voice a quiet rumble that I felt more than heard. You are, I said, the lawyer, Micah. No, he turned, shifting his body to face me. That is the foundation. That is what it does. I am asking you to let me help. Give me a chance, not to save you, but to stand with you. The distinction was everything, not to save me, to stand with me. The words hit me in the chest, pushing out the air. My gaze dropped to his hands, which were resting on the stone parapet. His white shirt cuffs were stark against his skin, and on the inside of his left wrist, peeking out, was a scar. It was not a fresh wound, but an old one, a silvery, puckered line, like a burn that had healed badly. I found myself reaching out, my fingers trembling and tracing the line of it. What happened? He did not flinch. He did not pull his hand away. He let me touch him. His skin was warm. A ghost of a smile, so faint it was barely there, touched his mouth. A souvenir, he said, from declining the wrong handshake. I looked up at his face, and he was looking at me, his eyes dark, the city lights reflected in their depths. He was not just a suit, he was not just a shadow. He was a man made of scars and control, and he was asking for a chance. He did not lunge. He did not move. The choice was mine. I leaned in. My heart was not pounding. For the first time in what felt like my entire life, it was steady. I rose up on my toes, and I touched my lips to his. It was not a collision. It was a landing. His lips were firm, warm and dry. It was just a press, a question. For a second, nothing happened. He just received it. Then he responded. He did not take. He gave. The kiss started slow, a deep, unhurried exploration. It was not the desperate, frantic grasping I had known from Dale. This was deliberate. This was reverent. I felt his hand come up, not to grab, but to support. His fingers, warm and strong, cupped the back of my neck. He did not pull me closer. He just held me, his thumb stroking the sensitive skin behind my ear, sending a shiver down my entire spine. My own hands, cracked and stained, found their way to his body. I pressed one flat against his chest, feeling the solid muscle beneath the wool and cotton. I slid my other hand around his back, my palm resting on the hard plane of his spine. I felt his heartbeat under my hand. It was not fast. It was a slow, powerful, steady thump, thump, thump. It was the surest thing I had ever felt. The kiss deepened. It was not a kiss of passion. Not yet. It was a kiss of recognition. It was a kiss that said, I see you. I am here. You are safe. His warmth enveloped me. the sandalwood scent filling my senses, the solidness of him becoming my entire world. I was not a line item. I was not a target. I was anchored. After a long, timeless moment, we broke apart. We did not move far. We were still breathing the same air. His hand was still gentle in my hair, my hand still flat against his heart. Our foreheads touched, and I closed my eyes. My breath was ragged, his was just as unsteady. Words were useless. They were too small for the space between us. There was only the wind, the distant city, and the steady, reassuring beat of his heart under my palm. I am here. I opened my eyes. He was looking at me, his expression unguarded. The hardness in his eyes softened to something I could not name. I lowered my hand from his chest and found his. His fingers were long, strong. I laced mine with his. It was an instinctive, immediate action. His hand closed around mine, a perfect fit. I do not need a knight, Cassian, I said, my voice thick, but sure. I am done being a damsel. I need an ally. His thumb stroked the back of my hand, and then he did something that shocked me more than the kiss. He smiled. It was not the ghost of a smile from before. It was a real one. It was small, and it did not last long, but it reached his eyes. It transformed his entire face, erasing the hard lines, softening the severe angle of his jaw. An ally, he repeated, as if tasting the word. I can do that. The moment hung there, perfect and still, a promise made in the cold night air, high above the broken city. A phone vibrated, not mine. The sound was a violation, loud and aggressive in our quiet bubble. The smile vanished from Cassian's face. He was back, focused. He pulled his phone from his coat, his hand still holding mine. He looked at the screen. Pax, he said, his voice all business. He put the phone to his ear. Talk to me. He listened. His body went rigid, the stillness returning. But this time it was not calm. It was the stillness of a predator. Where, he said? He listened again, his eyes locking on mine. How long? He nodded, though the person on the phone could not see. He's destroying evidence. We are on our way. He hung up. He did not let go of my hand. He just squeezed it once, pulling me with him toward the elevator. What is it? I asked, my heart starting to pound again, the fear rushing back in. That was Brennan, he said, his voice flat, cold, and final. Your former manager. He's at Garland's storage, on the other side of the river. He hit the button for the elevator, his eyes on mine, hard as steel. He is burning his files. The elevator ride down was silent. The high-voltage connection we had forged on the rooftop was still humming in my skin. A low, powerful current that had nothing to do with adrenaline. But the man beside me had changed. The ally who had kissed me was gone, replaced by the strategist. He had not retrieved his coat, the one he had used to smother the fire on the roof. He was just in his white shirt, seemingly impervious to the cold. In the sedan, the city lights blurred past. We crossed the river again, leaving the faint promise of downtown for the industrial wasteland of the east side. Garland's storage was a fortress of corrugated metal and cheap, fading orange paint, a place where people stored the things they could not let go of but no longer wanted to see. Cassian pulled the car into a dark alley across the street, killing the engine. The heavy silence of the armored car rushed in. Pax and Leno are covering the north and east exits, Mem, he said, his voice low, all business. The main gate is the only way in or out for a vehicle. That is where he is parked. I looked, a beat-up late 90s sedan, Brennan's. They are watching him. He's on foot inside. He turned to me, the dim dashboard lights carving his face into sharp planes of shadow and light. Are you ready? I nodded, my heart a heavy, slow drum. Stay behind me, no matter what. The main office was dark, locked up for the night. A single keypad lock granted access to the rows of units after hours. Cassian did not punch in a code. He used a key, a physical, old-fashioned key. How? I started. I bought the company 3 hours ago, he said, as if commenting on the weather. He pushed the heavy metal door open. It did not creak. The hallway was a long, oppressive canyon of identical orange doors. The only light came from dim, caged yellow bulbs spaced every 20 feet, casting more shadows than light. It was cold, but I could smell something else. Smoke? Not cigarette smoke. It was acrid, chemical. The smell of burning paper and plastic. The sound hit me next, a low, powerful hiss, a blowtorch. We moved toward the sound, our footsteps echoing in the metallic silence. Unit 318. The metal roll door was halfway open, a rectangle of pale light in the dim corridor. Inside, Brennan Cole was on his knees. He was illuminated by the harsh blue and white flame of the torch, which he had pointed into a large, galvanized metal trash can. He was frantically feeding files from a cardboard box into the flames. He looked smaller than I remembered, pathetic, sweaty, and terrified. I fumbled for my phone. My hands were shaking again, but this time, it was not from fear. It was from rage. I hit record, the small red light blinking to life. Cassian held up a hand, a silent command to wait, letting me capture the moment. The sound of my foot scuffing the concrete made Brennan spin around. His eyes went wide with sheer, animal terror. The blowtorch in his hand waved wildly. "Stay back, stay away from me, I am warning you." "It is over." "Brennan," I said, my voice sounding steadier than I felt, amplified by the enclosed space. "We know about the register. We know about Cade." "You do not know anything," he shrieked, the flame dancing, his voice cracking. "You think this is about a few dollars, about one diner." He scrambled backward, kicking over a box. "You do not understand. Cade is not just building houses. He's building a system. He owns everyone. The cops, the city. Everyone. You cannot stop him." His panicked movement kicked over an open plastic crate. It was not full of paper. It was electronics, wires, old routers, and a single, black external hard drive. It skittered across the concrete floor, stopping near my foot. I kept the phone recording, the lens aimed down as I bent to pick it up. The label was stark white, printed from a label maker. ACA Enforcement Sow. ACA, I whispered, the letters hitting me like a punch. The Atlantic Compliance Agency, the stamp on Micah's debt, the forged stamp on my eviction notice. Statement of work. "Give me that!" Brennan screamed. He was completely unhinged, his eyes on the drive in my hand. He was desperate. He lunged, but not at me. He swung the blowtorch toward the box he was burning. "No!" I shouted. He was not trying to scare us. He was trying to destroy the last of the evidence. The focused flame hit a stack of invoices. The paper ignited instantly. A sudden whoosh of orange flame that climbed the side of the cardboard box and licked the particle board wall of the unit's flimsy internal office. Cassian moved. He ripped his expensive wool coat off his shoulders, the one he had worn on the roof. He threw it onto the metal trash can, smothering the main fire, plunging the unit into near darkness. But it was too late. The new fire was climbing, catching on a plastic tarp stapled to the wall. "The fire alarm!" I yelled, looking for a pull station in the hallway. Brennan saw his chance. The fire was spreading, casting wild, dancing shadows. He scrambled for the door. I was in his way. "Get out of my way!" he bellowed, his face a mask of sweat and panic, and he shoved me, hard. He was stronger than he looked, driven by pure terror. I stumbled backward, my feet tangling. I was falling. My head was going to hit the concrete floor. I threw my hands out, but I was too slow. I never hit the ground. Two strong arms wrapped around me, iron bands that broke my fall. Cassian had caught me. He did not just stop me. He pulled me against his chest, one hand clamping instinctively, possessively, around the back of my neck, shielding my head. I was crushed against him, my face buried in his shirt. It smelled of him, of clean cotton and the faint, cold smell of the night air. I could feel his heart, steady and strong, even now. "I have you," he whispered, his voice a low growl in my ear. Headlights flooded the hallway, washing us in white, the sharp, digital chirp-chirp of sirens, not police sirens, private security. Two men in black tactical uniforms, ACA emblazoned on their chests, were running down the corridor, their hands on their sidearms. NCPD hands up on the ground. "They are not cops," Cassian said, his voice calm. He did not let go of me. He kept me tucked against his side, his hand still protectively on my neck. "They are Atlantic Compliance Agency, private police." "This is private property you are trespassing," the lead guard shouted, his gun steady. Brennan was cowering behind them, pointing a shaking finger at us. "That is them. They attacked me. They started the fire." "I am the owner," Cassian said. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the chaos. The guards stopped. The one who had spoken looked confused. "What did you say?" "I am the owner," Cassian repeated, projecting his voice. "Of Garland Storage. The sale closed at 8:10 p.m. this evening. My attorney is Mr. Romaldi. You gentlemen are trespassing on my property." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "And my employee," he nodded at a stunned Brennan, "appears to be committing arson." The two guards looked at each other. Their corporate macho confidence evaporated. This was not in their script. We were called for a disturbance. "The disturbance is handled," Cassian said. He still had his arm around my waist, holding me secure. He bent down, his eyes never leaving the guards, and scooped up his soot-stained coat from the floor. Then he looked at me, at the hard drive still clutched in my hand. "We have what we came for." He steered me toward the exit. "We are leaving," he announced. "You can stay and explain to the real police, the Northbridge Fire Department, exactly what you are doing here, or you can leave." The guards made the smart choice. They lowered their hands, their expressions a mix of confusion and anger. They grabbed a still protesting Brennan by the arm. "This is not over," one of them said, but it was a weak, empty threat. We walked out into the cold night air, fast. Pax and Leno materialized from the shadows near the main gate. Pax was holding a small black device. "They are going out the east exit," Pax said. "The car is tagged." "Good," Cassian said. "Let him run. He's just a fuse." We got into the sedan. Cassian started the engine and pulled away from the curb just as the first real sirens, red and blue lights, began to wail in the distance, growing closer. We drove in silence for several blocks. The hard drive was heavy in my lap. My hands were shaking. The adrenaline was draining away, leaving behind a cold, vibrating hollowness. I was trembling, a full-body shiver I could not control. The smell of smoke was in my hair, on my clothes. At a red light, Cassian looked over. He saw my hands, white-knuckled in my lap, clutching the hard drive. He did not say, "Are you okay?" He did not say, "It is over." He simply reached across the console and took my left hand. His hand was warm, his grip firm. He did not just hold it, he laced his fingers through mine, weaving them together, a tangible, physical link. His thumb brushed over my knuckles, a silent, steadying pressure. The warmth from his hand spread up my arm, a slow-moving tide against the cold panic. The shaking in my hands quieted. I looked down at our joined hands, his, strong, clean, and dangerous, mine, stained with soot. But now, steady. "I do not want to run anymore," I whispered, the words surprising me. I looked at him, the red light bathing his face in a harsh glow. "They took my job. They took my home. They tried to take my brother. I want to face them. I am tired of hiding." Cassian's gaze was intense. He did not look away. The light turned green, but he did not move for a second. "Then we will stop running," he said, his voice a low, hard promise. "We will drag the light to where they are hiding." He squeezed my hand once, then put the car in gear and drove us into the night. We were in a room at the Vieri Foundation, a room that felt like it was underground. There were no windows, just soundproofed walls and a single, heavy steel door. It was a digital war room. The hard drive I had grabbed from the fire at Garland Storage was plugged into a series of servers. Leno, the man who had appeared at the pier, was typing, his fingers flying across 3 different keyboards. Cassian and I stood behind him, watching the main monitor. The drive was not encrypted, not heavily. Anyway, Brennan was sloppy, and his bosses were arrogant. They had not believed he would ever be a threat. "I am in," Leno said. His voice was flat, professional. "It is not just accounting, boss, it is a playbook." He opened a file. It was a presentation, the kind of slick corporate PowerPoint that makes evil look boring. The title was Project Lighthouse. Lighthouse, and I whispered, "It is an algorithm." "Eden," Cassian said, his voice a low, hard rumble. He had seen this before. Maybe not this exact file, but this kind of evil. Leno clicked through the slides. They were scoring neighborhoods, Riverside, the Flats, my street. My building was on the list, 412 4th Street. It had a score, 92%. 92% what, I asked, my stomach clenching. Propensity for voluntary relocation, Leno read, his voice devoid of emotion. They are rating residents based on income, legal status, criminal records, dependencies. He clicked my building's entry. A log file opened, a spreadsheet of manufactured misery. Subject Edenvale. App 212. Status high, priority non-compliant. Action 1, internal compliance pressure. Comet Diner. Manager B. Cole. Status active. Action 2. External leverage. Tier 1. Relative M. Vale. Contractor Iron Serpents. Status active. Action 3. Domestic inspection. Sanitation. Fines applied. Action 4. Domestic inspection. Electrical. Utility interruption scheduled. Action 5. Legal eviction notice. Source NHC forgery. Status delivered. It was my life. The last 6 months of my life. And Brennan, Micah, the fake fines. The flickering lights I thought were just the building's bad wiring. It was all here. It was all a plan. A coordinated, deliberate assault to make me choose to leave. "They were pushing me out," I said, my voice hollow. I felt sick. "They are pushing everyone out," Cassian corrected me. He pointed to the master slide. "This is Sterling Cade's Glass Harbor Consortium, allied with the Atlantic Compliance Agency for Enforcement." "The benefit," Leno added, scrolling to the finance projections. "They buy the entire Riverside district for pennies on the dollar, citing urban decay and structural failures they created. Then they level it. They sell the cleansed land back to the city for the new port development." "How much?" Cassian asked. "The buy-in is $50 million. The projected resale," Leno paused, "is 10 times that. $500 million. They were destroying hundreds of lives. My life, for $500 million. "There is one more thing," Leno said, his voice tight. He clicked on a different folder. ACA personnel, consulting invoices. A list of names scrolled by, and one of them stopped my heart. "Mercer, Dale, security consultant, retainer $5,000 per month." I grabbed the edge of the desk. The room tilted. Dale. His constant presence. His texts. His threats. The rage that I thought was personal. Obsessive. It was a job. It was just another line item, a $5,000 tool to apply pressure. It was not just my stalker. He was an employee. "He is part of the machine," I whispered. The shame and fear I had felt before were burning away, replaced by a cold, sharp, clarifying anger. "They are all part of the machine," Cassian said. "They hide," I said, turning to him. My hands balled into fists. "They hide behind the Harbor Commission. They hide behind shell companies and fake agencies and men like Dale. It is how they insulate themselves." He agreed. Then we ripped the insulation off. The idea came to me, fully formed, the only move we had left. The Riverside Night Market. It is tomorrow night. Everyone goes. The whole neighborhood. All the people they are doing this to. We tell them. We show them. We drag Cade and his lighthouse into the light. Cassian was quiet, his eyes searching mine. He was the strategist. He was calculating the blowback. "If you make yourself the face of this Eden, they will come for you, not with thugs like Dale. Cade will use his real power, the courts, the media. He will try to destroy you publicly. Let him, I said. My voice did not shake. If we stay silent, Cassian, they win. They are already winning. I am done being silent. The Riverside Night Market was 3 blocks of beautiful, vibrant chaos. 4th Street was shut down, and strings of colored bulbs were strung between the lamp posts, buzzing faintly. The air was thick with the smell of frying onions, roasted corn, and diesel from the generators. Music blared from half a dozen different speakers, salsa competing with old rock and roll. It was home. I walked through the crowd, and for the first time, Cassian was at my side. He was a figure in a dark, expensive coat, a predator in a flock of pigeons. He did not belong, but he was with me. And he was not watching the crowd with disdain. He was watching it with a cold, assessing focus. He was mapping it. Eden misses. Calhoun, the old woman who sold flowers from a plastic bucket, grabbed my arm. Her hand was like a bird's claw, but strong. I heard you left that diner. Good for you. That manager was a Diablo. Hi, Mrs. C. I am working on something new. And who is this? She asked, her bright eyes landing on Cassian. This is my ally, I said. Cassian nodded once to her, a gesture of respect that seemed to surprise her. Ma'am? Sam from the hot dog stand waved, the kids playing soccer in the street, using chalk for goalposts, paused to let us pass. This was my community. This was my soft armor. And Cade thought he could just erase them. We had a small platform, normally used to unload produce, and a single microphone plugged into a speaker. My heart was a drum against my ribs. This was it. Cassian stood at the foot of the platform. He did not touch me, but his presence was a physical weight at my back. He just looked at me and nodded once. I am here. I stepped up. The music died down as people saw me. I tapped the mic, and it shrieked with feedback. My name is Eden Vale. I started, my voice shaking. I live in the flats, apartment 212. Most of you know me from the Comet Diner. The crowd quieted, curious. I am here because something is happening to us. To Riverside. I held up my fake eviction notice. Did any of you get one of these from the Northbridge Harbor Commission? A low murmur started. A man in the front row, Mr. Diaz, held his up, then another and another. Did you get fined for sanitation? The murmur grew louder. Yes, someone shouted. Have you had inspections? Have your lights been cut? Have you been told you owe money you do not owe? The crowd was stirring now, the shared fear becoming a shared anger. It is a lie, I shouted, my voice finally finding its strength. It is all a lie. It is a plan to scare us out. It is run by a man named Sterling Cade and his company, Glass Harbor. They are using fake debts and fake inspectors. They are trying to steal our homes. The silence that followed was absolute. And then someone clapped, then another. And then the entire street erupted in applause, not in joy, but in defiance. It was the sound of hope, sharp and dangerous. The hope lasted for exactly 12 hours. The next morning, I was in the sterile, beige kitchen of the corporate apartment when a man in a perfectly tailored $3,000 suit rang the bell. He handed me a thick envelope. Cassian took it from my numb fingers. He was standing by the window, drinking coffee, as calm as if he were reading the morning paper. Voss, he said, reading the name on the summons, Cade's top lawyer. What is it? I whispered. It is a lawsuit. Northbridge Regional Court, slander, defamation, and libel. They are seeking an immediate injunction to stop your harassment of the Glass Harbor Consortium. He flipped the page. And they are suing you for $10 million. I collapsed into a chair. The air left my lungs. 10 million? He is silencing me. Just like you said. He is silencing Eden Vale. Cassian corrected me, his voice sharp. He put the papers down. The waitress, the hysterical tenant. He's burying you in paper, tying you up in a court he already controls. So what do? We cannot fight that. No, Cassian said. We cannot. Not on this field. He was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the city, the strategist seeing the whole board. When he turned back, his eyes were cold and bright. "We cannot play on his field," he said, "so we will play on ours, inside his—" "I do not understand." And "This weekend, Octitais," he said, "Cade is hosting the annual Glass Harbor Gala. It is his signature event. He will be there. His partners will be there. And his investors will be there. You want to picket it?" A small, cold smile touched his lips. "No, we're going to be invited. Cade is looking for new philanthropists to whitewash his project. He wants legitimacy." The plan was forming, quick and deadly, right in front of me. "You," he said, "will not be Eden Vale. The waitress, you will be Dr. Eden Vale, an urban researcher from a Chicago think tank, specializing in ethical redevelopment. I will be your financial backer, a quiet philanthropist interested in the sociological impact of Cade's new harbor." "And what are we doing there?" Cassian mingling. "Cade is arrogant," Monty said, ignoring my sarcasm. "He's also meticulous. The master files for Project Lighthouse, the real contracts with the ACA, the payoffs. He will not have destroyed them. He will have them close. My sources tell me he keeps a private document safe in the curator's office, just off the main floor, where he holds his private meetings." I stared at him. "You are going to crack a safe at a gala while I— what?" "Talk about sociology." "You are going to keep Sterling Cade distracted," he said. "You are going to be the light, and I am going to be the shadow. We are going to take the very thing he is using to destroy Riverside, and we are going to burn his house down with it." The Glass Harbor Gala was not held in a ballroom. It was held in a tomb, a massive, converted shipyard hangar on the edge of the water, where the skeletons of half-built ships once rested. Sterling Cade had hung temporary crystal chandeliers from the steel rafters, and their light glittered like ice, doing nothing to warm the cavernous space. A live jazz quartet was playing, but the music sounded thin, swallowed by the sheer volume of the place. This was his world, arrogant, industrial, and covered in a thin, expensive veneer of culture. I was part of that veneer tonight. I was no longer Eden Vale, the waitress from the Comet Diner. I was Dr. Eden Vale, a name Cassian had fabricated, complete with a flawless digital footprint from a Chicago-based urban studies think tank. The woman in the mirror at the corporate apartment had been a stranger. Someone had tailored a dress for me, a deep navy blue silk that skimmed the floor and left my shoulders bare. It was simple, elegant, and felt like armor. My hair was swept up, and the only jewelry I wore was a pair of small, borrowed diamond studs. Cassian was waiting by the door. He was in a perfectly cut tuxedo, but his tie was the color of smoke, a small, personal act of defiance. He looked at me, and his eyes, they did not just scan, they saw. The hardness in them softened for a private, fractional second. He held out his arm. "Doctor," he said, his voice a low vibration. "Mr. Vieri," I replied, placing my hand on his arm. We walked in, and we were invisible. Just another couple, another pair of donors, another piece of the set. The air was thick with the smell of expensive perfume and the low hum of power. After an hour of polite nods and glasses of champagne, I did not drink. The jazz quartet started a slow number. Cassian turned to me. "They are watching. We must be seen." He led me to the small, polished patch of floor that served as the dance floor. He put one hand on the small of my back, his palm warm and solid against the bare skin. His other hand took mine. We moved slowly, a simple, formal box step. It was just an act, a ritual to blend in. But he was too close. The smell of his skin, clean and sharp, mixed with the faint, warm scent of his breath. I could feel the solid wall of his chest, the steady, powerful beat of his heart through the layers of silk and starch. I was acutely aware of every single person in the room, yet entirely focused on the man holding me. I rested my head against his shoulder for a moment, a gesture that would look intimate, trusting to anyone watching. My lips were just by his ear. "If something goes wrong," I whispered, my breath a warm puff against his neck. He did not miss a step. His hand tightened on mine. "Then I take your hand," he murmured back, his voice a low, private promise. "And we run." He pulled back, just enough to look at me. His eyes were dark, serious. "Voss is by the bar. Kate is holding court by the model of the new harbor. You know what to do." I nodded. He released me, and the cold of the room rushed in to fill the space where his warmth had been. He melted into the shadows of the crowd, heading for the cordoned-off corridor marked Logistics and Staff. I took a breath. I was Dr. Vale. I walked toward the bar, my target a tall, thin man with silver hair and a face like a hungry bird, Mr. Voss, Cade's lawyer. "Mr. Voss," I said, my voice smooth. "Academic." He turned, a polite, predatory smile on his face. "Yes." "Dr. Eden Vale. I was so fascinated by your recent filings, the ones on behalf of the Harbor Commission." His smile faltered. "I'm afraid I specialize in urban displacement metrics," I said, my voice full of friendly, intellectual curiosity. "And the indexes your team cited. I have never seen such an aggressive model. I was particularly interested in your definition of coercive displacement indices as they apply to non-compliant populations. Could you elaborate on your methodology?" His face went pale. I had him. I was speaking his secret language, the sterile, corporate terms for human misery. He was trapped. He began to stammer a long, technical, meaningless defense. I kept him talking. I watched him sweat under the cold crystal lights, my face a mask of academic interest. Out of the corner of my eye, the lights in the room flickered once, twice, 3 times, a subtle, momentary dimming. The jazz quartet paused, then resumed. Pax. A 3-second blackout on the auxiliary systems. Leno was at the safe. Voss was still talking, but his eyes were darting now. He was spooked. "Dr. Vale." The voice was smooth, powerful, and right behind me. I turned. Sterling Cade. He was handsome in the way a shark is handsome. Perfect teeth, cold blue eyes, and a predator's easy confidence. He was the man who had ordered my life destroyed. "Mr. Cade," I said, my smile just as smooth, just as fake. "I am so glad you could make it," he said, taking my hand, his grip firm. "I was listening to your speech at the market the other night. Such passion for a smarter city." My blood ran cold. He knew who I was. The Dr. Vale identity was not a disguise. It was a taunt. He was playing with me. I did not flinch. I did not pull my hand away. I met his cold blue gaze. "Passion is the engine of change, Mr. Cade," I replied, my voice steady. "But it has to be guided by data. Otherwise, you are just displacing the problem." His smile widened. He appreciated the fight. This was a game. A tiny, almost imperceptible click came from the earpiece hidden in my hair. Cassian's voice. Not a whisper, but a flat, calm statement in my ear. "We have it. Lighthouse master logs and the ACA contract. Move to the exit." My heart leaped. I gave Cade a brilliant smile. "If you will excuse me, Mr. Cade, I believe I need some fresh air." "Of course," he said, his eyes glittering. "Do not get lost." I turned and walked away, my back straight, my legs steady. I was halfway to the main entrance when a new sound cut through the jazz. A high, piercing, digital alarm, not the fire alarm, a security alarm. The music stopped. A man in a black tactical uniform, Dale Mercer, burst out of the logistics corridor. He was not in a suit. He was in his ACA uniform, his face red with fury. He pointed back down the hallway. "He's in there. He's getting away." He had spotted Leno. The room erupted. Cade was shouting. Voss was on his phone. I saw a flash of movement. Cassian. And he was not coming from the corridor. He was on the other side of the room, near the caterer's exit, moving fast, using the panicked crowd as cover. But Dale saw him. "There it is, Vieri," Dale bellowed, and started to run, pushing a waiter out of his way, crashing through the crowd, his eyes locked on Cassian. He was going to cut Cassian off. He was fast, and he was desperate. I did not think. I acted. I was holding a flute of champagne, the one I had been using as a prop. I stepped directly into Dale's path. He tried to swerve, but I was too close. I tripped, stumbling into him, and flung the entire contents of my glass, 5 ounces of cold, sticky champagne directly onto his chest and his polished black boots. "Oh my goodness," I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. "I am so sorry I'm so clumsy." Dale stopped, roaring in frustration. "Get out of my way, you stupid—" He looked down, and he looked at me, and he recognized me, the waitress, the girl from the diner. The blood drained from his face. But it was too late. In those 3 golden seconds I had bought, Cassian was gone. He had slipped past the exit and disappeared into the night. Dale shoved me aside, sending me stumbling into a table of half-eaten appetizers, but I did not care. I straightened my dress, my heart hammering, and I walked, not ran, toward the main exit. I burst out into the night. The air was bitingly cold, thick with the smell of the low tide. The wind whipped my hair from its pins, stinging my bare shoulders. The black sedan was waiting, its engine a low, idling growl. I pulled the heavy door open and fell inside. Cassian was in the driver's seat. He did not look at me. He just hit the gas. The car shot forward, tires protesting on the asphalt, leaving the noise and the lights of the gala behind. We drove in silence, plunging into the darkness of the industrial park. He took 3 fast turns, doubling back, making sure we were not followed. Finally, he pulled over, parking in the deep shadow of an abandoned warehouse by the riverbank. He killed the engine. The only sound was the wind and the ragged, gulping sound of my own breathing. He turned to me. His face was in shadow, but I could feel the intensity of his gaze. He reached out, his hand gentle, and touched my hair, his fingers brushing the earpiece. "You did well, doctor," he said. And then he smiled, the same rare, genuine smile I had seen on the roof. It lit his face. "I promised I would hold your hand if we had to run," he said, his voice low, the gravel gone, replaced by something warm. "I keep my promises." He held his hand out, palm up, in the dark space between us. My heart was so full, I thought it would break. I put my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, strong and sure. The trust was absolute, sealed. He did not pull me. He just held my hand. I leaned across the console, drawn by the warmth, by the sheer, undeniable fact of him. He met me halfway. This kiss was not like the one on the roof. That was a question. This was an answer. It was deep, and it was warm. It was not rushed or desperate. It was the kiss of 2 people who had just walked through fire and found each other on the other side. His free hand came up, not to my neck, but to my face, his fingers splaying, his thumb stroking my cheekbone. It was impossibly gentle. I breathed him in, the cold night air, the scent of victory, the clean, male scent of him. Our breath mingled in the cold, a small cloud of steam between us. It was a long kiss, a kiss that spoke of allies, of partners, of a future I had never dared to imagine. He pulled back, just an inch. His forehead rested against mine. His hand was still on my cheek, his thumb still stroking my skin. His eyes were closed. "When this is safe," he whispered, his voice thick. "When Kate is done, we will not have to hold back." It was not a request, it was a promise, and in the safety of the dark car, with the evidence that could save my home tucked away, I believed him. The victory we had tasted in the car, the warmth of that promise, lasted less than 12 hours. The next morning, Cade's hammer fell. "Mr. Romaldi called at 7 in the morning. His voice was sharp, stripped of its usual legal calm. "Voss filed an emergency injunction at dawn. Northbridge Regional Court. Judge McHale. He's one of Cade's." I was in the kitchen of the beige corporate apartment, Cassian watching me from the doorway, a cup of coffee in his hand. "What does it mean?" I asked, my hand gripping the phone. It means the data from the gala is sealed, Romaldi said, his voice tight with frustration. He is citing proprietary trade secrets and corporate espionage. You cannot release it. You cannot show it to the press. You cannot even speak of its specific contents. As of this moment, that hard drive is legally toxic. He is silencing you. I hung up, my stomach a cold knot. He sealed the data. We cannot use it. Cassian did not look surprised. He just nodded slowly, processing. He's cutting off our legal options. That was the legal hammer, he said. The physical one is next. 30 minutes later, it arrived. Pax, who had been stationed in the lobby of the building, called Cassian's private line. His voice was urgent. Boss, ACA team, in the lobby. 4 men. They have a civil warrant for Miss Vale's arrest, trespassing, and theft of intellectual property. My blood ran cold. This was not a police warrant. This was Cade's private army. They are not here to arrest you, Cassian said, his voice flat. He was already moving, grabbing my coat. They are here to seize you, get you into their system where you will disappear just like Brennan. We did not take the elevator. We took the concrete service stairs, 10 flights down to the garage. We were in the armored sedan and pulling out of the garage's rear exit before the ACA team had even cleared the lobby security desk. He drove me to the one place he knew was his. It was not a safe house. It was a fortress. We left the downtown area, heading back toward the bruised edges of Riverside. He parked behind a massive, dark shape, an abandoned church. St. Marrow's, I whispered. It had been deconsecrated for 20 years. A Gothic, stone shell. The foundation bought it last year, he said, leading me to a reinforced steel door in the back. We are renovating it. A new community center. He pushed the door open, inside. It was a cavernous, cold echo. The air smelled of dust, old incense, and new lumber. The stained glass windows were boarded up, and the pews were gone, leaving a vast, empty wooden floor under a vaulted ceiling. It was silent. It was safe. You stay here, he said. Pax will be at the door. Leno is monitoring their movements. They will not find you. He left me there. I stood in the dusty light, alone. I was a fugitive. The data we had risked everything for was legally useless. I was facing a $10 million lawsuit, and now I had a warrant for my arrest. Our victory at the gala had been turned into a perfect trap. Cade was not just playing chess. He was breaking the pieces. I spent the day pacing the dusty floor under the gaze of a headless plaster statue of a saint. My hope was draining away, replaced by a cold, familiar dread. At 4 p.m, my phone rang. Not my old, cracked phone, the new, secure one Cassian had given me. It was not Cassian. It was the man he had left to guard Micah. Boss, the man said, and his voice was tight, the kid is gone. The bottom fell out of my world? What do you mean, gone? He was spooked all day, said he needed air. He slipped our guy in the lobby. He is not picking up his phone. He has been gone an hour. No, I whispered. I disconnected and immediately dialed Micah's number. It went straight to voicemail. I dialed again. Voicemail. Cassian was there in 20 minutes. He must have broken every speed limit in Northbridge. He walked in, his face a mask of cold control, but his eyes were black with a contained fury. He was scared, I said, my voice shaking. Cade got to him, or the serpents. Cade is the serpents, Noah, Cassian reminded me, his voice hard. He was already on his other line. Leno, trace Micah Vale's phone. I want a last known ping, now. He did not wait. He started pacing. A caged panther. They are testing us. They are looking for a weak point. They found him, I whispered, the guilt of physical sickness. Leno called back in less than 2 minutes. Cassian put it on speaker. His phone is off. Boss, but the last ping about an hour ago. Shoreline 6, the old container yard. My heart stopped. Rook's Turf, I said. And Glass Harbor's new transfer site, Cassian countered. It is the same place. I grabbed my jacket. I am going. No, Cassian said. It was not a request. It is my brother. Cassian, I screamed, the sound echoing in the empty church. This is my fault. They are using him to get to me. I am not hiding in a church while they... Which is precisely why you are not going alone. He grabbed my arm, his grip firm, stopping me. I go with you. There is no compromise. Shoreline 6 was a graveyard of steel, a maze of shipping containers stacked 6 high. The wind howled through the narrow metal canyons, a low, full shriek. It was almost dark, and the only light came from a few flickering yard lamps that cast long, grotesque shadows. There were no bikes, no guards. The place felt abandoned. This is not a negotiation, Cassian said, his voice low as we moved through the shadows. This is a trap. We found Rook behind a stack of blue Hanjin containers. He was on his knees, his hands zip-tied behind his back. His face was a pulp. He had been methodically beaten. He looked up as we approached, one eye swollen shut, blood caked on his mouth. He spat. He took the kid, Rook wheezed. Who? Cassian's voice was cold, sharp. Not Cade, the ex-cop, the big one, Mercer. Rook laughed, a wet, terrible sound. We were just soldiers, man, small time. But Cade does not like loose ends. He needs leverage. He focused his good eye on me. Leverage to force you. As if summoned by his name. My phone buzzed in my hand, a video call from an unknown number. I answered it. Dale Mercer's face filled the screen. He was in a dark concrete room, and he was smiling, his face flushed with that familiar, ugly pleasure. Hello, Eden. Miss me? He panned the camera. Micah. He was tied to a steel chair. His face was pale, his eyes wide with terror, but he was unharmed. He was just a prop. Dale's face was back, filling the screen. Cade is a reasonable man. He's tired of this. He's willing to let this all go. What does he want? I asked, my voice a thin, shaking thread. He wants what you stole, Dale sneered. The hard drive from the gala, all copies. He wants you, Eden, to turn yourself in on the civil warrant quietly, no press, and he wants Vieri, he spat the name, to pull his foundation and all his money out of Riverside, permanently. You walk away from the city. And if we do not, Cassian asked, his voice calm, stepping into the frame beside me. Dale's smile widened. Then Micah pays his debt, in full, and you, Eden, you get to watch. The screen went black. The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering on the oily pavement. My legs gave out. I would have collapsed, but Cassian caught me. He did not embrace me. He gripped my upper arms, his hands like steel clamps, holding me upright, forcing me to look at him. Give it to them. I choked, the words tearing out of me. The tears were hot, blurring his face. Give them the drive. I will go. I will do whatever they want. Just get him back. No. His voice was flat, final. Eden, look at me. I focused through the blur. His eyes were not cold. They were on fire. We do not bargain with family, he said. His voice a low, intense growl that vibrated through his hands into my arms. They put their hands on your brother. They think that makes you weak. He pulled me a fraction of an inch closer. It makes us dangerous. We take him back, and then we break them. He let go of one of my arms, pulling out his phone. His other hand stayed on my shoulder, a solid, grounding weight. Pax, Leno, full mobilization. We are moving on shoreline. Cade just made it personal. He listened. I do not care. Find the room Micah Vale is in. I want a tactical plan in 10 minutes. He hung up and looked at me. The tears were still on my face, but I was not crying anymore. I will get Micah, he said. Pax and I. We will handle the exchange. And what do I do? I asked, my voice raw. Sit in the church and wait. No, he said. A cold, hard light was in his eyes. You are the other flank. Cade wants to silence you. He wants to make you disappear. You are going to be the loudest person in Northbridge. He was right. Cade had 2 levers, Micah, and the law. Cassian would break the first one. I would break the second. I did not go to the night market. It was too late. I went to the entrance of the Riverside Flats, where it opened onto the street. I took the bullhorn from Cassian's car. Leno had given me a laptop and a portable projector. He had encrypted the lighthouse files, locking them so Cade could not use them, but he had left one thing visible, the spreadsheet. I pointed the projector at the flat, blank brick wall of the building across the street, and I turned it on. The names lit up the wall, our names, the fines, the scores, Project Lighthouse. People came to their windows. People stopped on the street. I raised the bullhorn. My name is Eden Vale. My voice, metallic and loud, echoed off the buildings. This morning, Sterling Cade sued me for $10 million. He sent his private police to arrest me. He did it to silence me. He did it to tell me that what we are seeing is not real. I pointed to the wall. You misses. Calhoun, does this look like a lie? Utility interruption scheduled? Mr. Diaz, does this look like a lie? False fines applied. The crowd was growing, drawn by the light and the noise. They think they can buy our silence. They think they can scare us back into our homes. And right now, my voice cracked, the rage and fear mixing. They have my brother. They took him to make me be quiet. A gasp went through the crowd. They want to shut me up. They want to shut us up. I held up a clipboard with a single sheet of paper. Then we are going to get louder. This is a class action petition. We are taking him to court. We are taking our city back. A cheer went up, a ragged, furious, hopeful sound. People surged forward, grabbing the pen, signing their names, one after another. In the middle of the noise, my phone vibrated, a text from Dale's number. Cade is impressed, but it does not change the deal. Tonight, midnight, Depot 3, the old rail yard. Bring the drive. Come alone. I showed the text to Cassian. He had appeared at the edge of the crowd, a shadow in the noise, watching me. He read the text. He looked at the crowd, at the list of signatures growing on the clipboard, and then at me. His eyes were not just proud. They were full of a cold, hard certainty. He took the phone from my hand. He typed a short reply. See you there. Depot 3 was a cathedral of rust, a graveyard of forgotten industry. It was midnight. The rain was no longer a drizzle. It was a cold, slanted assault, hissing as it struck the vibrating sodium lamps. The light they cast was a sickly, pulsating yellow, making the puddles on the cracked concrete look like pools of sulfur. They were waiting. Sterling Cade stood in the center of the vast open-air yard, protected by a large black umbrella held by a subordinate. He looked immaculate, bored. His lawyer, Voss, was at his side, clutching a slim briefcase. Surrounding them in a loose, professional semicircle were a dozen men in the black tactical uniforms of the Atlantic Compliance Agency. They were armed. And in the middle of it all, tied to a steel folding chair, was Micah. He was soaked, shivering, his head bowed, the yellow light catching the terror on his pale face. Dale Mercer stood beside him, his hand resting possessively on Micah's shoulder, a grin on his face. I watched from hell. I was 50 feet up, lying flat on the wet, vibrating metal of a gantry crane's catwalk. The wind howled, trying to rip me from my perch. A cold, tiny earpiece was nestled in my ear. I see you, Eden. Leno's voice whispered, a ghost in the machine. The billboard feed is patched to your stream. Give the word. Cassian walked out of the darkness. He moved into the diseased yellow light alone. His hands were empty, visible at his sides. He wore a dark coat, no umbrella. The rain immediately soaked his hair, plastering it to his forehead. He did not look at the ACA troops. He did not look at Cade. He looked at Micah. You came, Cade said. His voice was smooth, amplified by the yard's acoustics. I admire the theatricality, but the play is over. I am here for the boy, Cassian said. His voice was flat, cutting through the hissing rain. The boy is just the admission price, Cade said with a small, indulgent laugh. Voss. The lawyer stepped forward, opening his briefcase. He produced a single, thick document, A full reconciliation, Voss announced, his voice reedy. Glass Harbor proceeds with the Riverside acquisition. Unimpeded, the Vieri Foundation ceases all operations in Northbridge, effective immediately, and liquidates its local assets. And the girl, Cade added, gesturing vaguely into the darkness where he knew I must be. Miss Vale vanishes. A permanent, binding non-disclosure. She accepts the civil warrant, pleads guilty to trespassing, and her $10 million fine is stayed indefinitely in return. All charges against her brother are dropped. You get the city, Cashin said, summarizing the extortion. We disappear. That is the deal, Cade said. Cashin's gaze lifted, past Cade, to the massive, dark rectangle on the far side of the depot, an old, dead advertising billboard. I took a breath. I pressed the button on the laptop beside me. Now, Leno. A loud fist echoed through the yard as a bank of powerful floodlights hit the billboard. It lit up, 50 feet wide, a giant, glaring screen in the rainy night. It was not an advertisement. It was Project Lighthouse. It was the spreadsheet with their names. It was the forged Harbor Commission documents. It was the ACA contract, with Sterling Cade's signature visible from 100 yards away. Cade spun, his umbrella falling. Voss let out a small, strangled sound. What is this? Cade bellowed. That, I shouted, my voice booming through the PA system Leno had patched me into, is the truth. And then they came. From the main gate, from the gaps in the chain-link fence, they walked out of the rainy darkness and into the yellow light. Mrs. Calhoun, holding a bright purple umbrella. Mr. Diaz, his face grim. The families from the night market, the people from the rally. 10, then 50, then 100. They were soaked, they were cold, but they were there. They filled the entrance to the depot, a silent, staring wall of witnesses, their cell phones held up, their cameras recording. The public opinion had arrived. Dale Mercer saw the crowd, saw the billboard, and he panicked. He grabbed Micah by the throat, yanking him from the chair, using him as a human shield. Stay back, everyone, stay back. I was ready. The 50-pound sandbag left on the catwalk for a decade was right beside me. I shoved it over the edge. It did not hit him. It hit the pavement 3 feet in front of him, exploding like a small bomb. The wet sand and gravel sprayed into his face. He roared, instinctively shoving Micah away from him to shield himself. It was the opening. A shadow detached itself from a rusted boxcar. Pax. He moved like a phantom, grabbing Micah, cutting his bonds with one swift, practiced motion and dragging him back into the crowd before Dale could even wipe the mud from his eyes. Micah was safe. That evidence is illegal, Voss shrieked, finding his voice, pointing a shaking finger at the glowing billboard. It is inadmissible fruit of the poisonous tree. We will have it suppressed in seconds. This is a criminal act. Cassian had not moved. He turned his head slowly, looking at the lawyer. The hard drive was retrieved from Unit 318 at Garland's storage, he said, his voice calm. So what? Voss snapped. Garland storage is an asset of the Vieri Foundation, Cassian replied. The trap, set days ago, finally snapped shut. We purchased the company at 8:10 p.m. on Tuesday, per the Foundation's registered charter. All assets acquired under the Community Patronage Clause are subject to internal review. The contract was not stolen from Mr. Cade. It was found on my property during a review of a tenant's abandoned, burning files. It is perfectly legal. It is our evidence. As if on cue, a new, brighter light cut through the rain, a news van from the Northbridge Civil Tribune. The only local paper Cade did not own, rolled into the depot, its camera live. We are here at Depot 3, a reporter's voice shouted, where residents of Riverside have cornered billionaire Sterling Cade over what they claim is a massive conspiracy. The two suits from the Harbor Commission, who had been hiding behind the ACA troops, looked physically ill. They were trapped. Cade's face was purple. The mask was gone. This was not business. This was failure. Get him, he screamed at his ACA captain, pointing at Cassian. Seize him. He is trespassing. Take him now." The ACA troops unslung their rifles, moving forward, forming a line. "Leno," Cashin said, his voice quiet. Click. Every light in the depot died, the sodium lamps, the billboard, Cade's SUV headlights, everything plunged into absolute, disorienting darkness. The only illumination came from the strobing blue and red lights of the city police cars, just now arriving at the main gate, and the single, blinding white light of the news camera. It was chaos. People screamed. In the flashing, nightmarish strobe of the police lights, I saw Dale Mercer. It was not tactical. It was pure rage. He lowered his head and charged at the last spot he had seen Cassian. There was a sound, not a gunshot, a hard, wet crack of bone hitting pavement, a thud. The depot's emergency lights kicked on, a dim, sickly red glow. Dale Mercer was face down in a puddle. Cassian was standing over him, his knee on his back, one of Dale's arms locked at an impossible angle. I did not wait. I slid down the slick metal rungs of the gantry ladder, my boots hitting the ground. I ran. I did not run to Micah, who was safe with Pax. I ran past the news camera. I ran to Cassian. He looked up as I skidded to a stop, his face hard and wet in the red light. I did not say a word. I knelt in the rain beside him and put my hand on top of his. Our joined hands holding Dale to the concrete, an ally, a partner. The yard was silent, save for the rain and the collective gasp of the crowd. No shots fired, just the flash of phone cameras, like 100 stars being born. Cade saw it all. He saw his muscle neutralized. He saw the press. He saw the real police, now filtering into the yard. He saw his world ending. He turned and ran. He bolted for the back gate, for his hidden escape car. He yanked the heavy corrugated gate open and froze. The alley was blocked, a row of motorcycles, their headlights a solid wall of white light. Standing in front of them, his battered face a mask of purple and black, was Rook. He was flanked by 6 iron serpents. Cade tried to step back, but he was trapped. "We saw the lighthouse memo." "Cade," Rook's voice rumbled, gravel and fury. "The part where you listed the iron serpents as expendable assets for Phase 2, we do not sell our neighborhood." Rook stepped forward, grabbed the front of Cade's $1,000 suit, and dragged the billionaire back into the shadows. The red and blue lights of the city police cars washed over the depot, painting the scene in a strobe of official, final judgment. Voss was the first to break, his voice a shrill shriek in the sudden quiet. "This is an illegal gathering. That data is inadmissible. My client," a city police sergeant, his face impassive and tired, walked over and unplugged the microphone from the PA system. The lawyer's voice was instantly swallowed by the rain. Pinned by the news cameras and the silent, staring crowd, the 2 men from the Harbor Commission finally cracked. They rushed the reporter, their faces pale and desperate. "The Northbridge Harbor Commission," one of them announced, his voice thin and reedy, "is immediately freezing all development permits related to the Glass Harbor Consortium, pending a full investigation into these procurement irregularities." The other man, sweating in the cold rain, added, "And the Atlantic Compliance Agency's municipal charter is suspended, effective immediately." They were cutting the lines, severing the limb to save themselves. The Northbridge police, not Cade's private army, hauled Dale Mercer to his feet. He was still trying to bluff. "You cannot hold me. I am a security consultant. We are holding you on suspicion of assault, aggravated kidnapping, and extortion, Mr. Mercer." The sergeant replied, his voice flat. They cuffed him and led him away. Just another piece of the machine, broken and exposed. And Cade. Rook and his men melted back into the shadows of the alley, leaving Cade for the city. He was sitting on the wet pavement, his expensive suit ruined, his arrogance finally gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed shock. A quiet man in a simple trench coat, someone from the city's Urban Ethics Committee, knelt beside him. "Mr. Cade," he said softly, "we have had some questions about your bidding process for a very long time. We would appreciate it if you came downtown to answer them." He was not arrested. He was detained. It was a quieter, sharper, and more permanent end. The crowd did not cheer. It was a sigh, a massive collective exhalation of breath that had been held for months. It was the sound of a fever breaking. Micah broke free from Pax's protective shadow and ran to me. He slammed into my arms, burying his face in my shoulder, his body shaking with sobs. "Eden, I'm so sorry. I am so stupid. I am so sorry. Hey." I just held him, my own tears mixing with the rain on his face. My brother, he was safe. I looked over his head, my eyes finding Cassian. He was watching us, his face unreadable in the chaos of the flashing lights. In the confusion, I saw Brennan Cole, my old manager, scuttling over to a detective, clutching a slim briefcase. "I have more," he was whispering, his voice desperate. "I have the offshore accounts, the real ledgers. I want civil immunity. I can give you the whole system." The system was eating itself. An hour later, the yard was almost empty. The rain had softened to a fine mist. Cassian was waiting by the sedan as I finished giving my statement. He held out a single key on a plain metal ring. "The apartment in the downtown high-rise," he said, his voice low. "The foundation is subsidizing the lease for all residents displaced by the false notices. It is clean, it is safe, it is yours, for 1 year." I looked at the key in his hand. It was an escape. It was a new life. It was everything I had dreamed of 2 weeks ago. Then I looked across the yard, where Mrs. Calhoun, the old flower seller, was being helped into a car, clutching her empty bucket. I gently pushed his hand, the key still in it, back toward him. "Thank you," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "But the first name on that list is not mine. It is hers. Her eviction notice was real, and she has nowhere else to go." Cassian studied my face for a long, silent moment. A slow, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. He did not argue. He just nodded, closing his hand around the key and put it back in his pocket. We were the last to leave. We stood under the leaking metal awning of the depot, watching the last police car pull away. The silence was profound, broken only by the drip of water from the corrugated roof. I was soaked to the skin, my hair a heavy, wet rope, and I was shivering. The adrenaline finally gone, leaving only a deep, bone-weary cold. Cassian stepped closer. He did not speak. He just lifted his hand, his touch impossibly warm and gentle, and brushed the wet hair back from my cheek. His fingers lingered, a silent, grounding presence. I did not think. I just moved. I stepped forward into his space and pressed my forehead against the solid, warm wall of his chest. I did not cry. I just let go. Leaning my full weight against him, I closed my eyes, breathing in his scent, clean cotton, sandalwood, and the sharp, metallic smell of the rain. His heart was under my ear, a slow, powerful, steady beat. Thump, 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 my anchor. His arms came around me, pulling me in. One hand spread wide across my back, a solid shield, the other settled on my waist, holding me firm. It was not a possessive grip. It was a statement. I am here. He just held me, sharing his warmth until my shivering began to subside. I tilted my head back to look up at him. His face was in shadow, but I could see the intensity in his dark eyes. That first night, I whispered, my voice rough, at the diner, I wrote, "Help me." "I remember," he said, his voice a low rumble. I thought I was just screaming for anyone, but I was not. I think I was writing, "Find me," and I was writing it for you. A small, true smile touched his lips. He leaned down, resting his forehead against mine, his breath warm on my skin. "I saw you, Eden," he whispered, his voice for me, and me alone. "I saw you long before I ever read the note." And he kissed me. It was not the desperate promise in the car. It was not the cautious question on the roof. This was an arrival. It was slow, and it was deep, and it was warm. It was the end of the war and the beginning of the world. His hand on my back held me securely, respectfully, anchoring me to him. It was a kiss that held nothing back, but asked for nothing in return. It was a kiss between allies, between equals. I did not take the apartment. I stayed in Riverside. The Vieri Foundation did not leave. It dug its roots in. The old, abandoned stone church of St. Maro's, the place where I had hidden, began its transformation. It became the Riverside Commons, a legal aid clinic and job training center for the families Cade had tried to erase. I was not the girl who needed saving. I was the director of operations. I stood in the dusty, cavernous nave, sawdust in my hair, directing the renovations. My voice sure. Cassian was there, and he was not in front of me, leading the way. He was beside me, reviewing blueprints, his presence a quiet, steady force. The consequences were real, not magic. The Iron Serpents, their contract with Cade broken, signed a district truce. They traded their territory for a Vieri-funded garage, and Rook, finding himself in need of a new line of work, became the head of security for the Commons. He was still terrifying, but now he was ours. Weeks later, the Comet Diner closed at 7 p.m., not because it was out of business, but because it was ours now, a co-op owned by the community. We were having a party. Cassian and I took the back stairs to the roof. The broken neon sign was fixed. It hummed a healthy, warm pink against the deep blue of the twilight sky. Someone had brought up an old record player, and a scratchy jazz tune was drifting over the city. He held out his hand. "May I have this dance? Director Vale?" he asked, a rare, teasing light in his eyes. "You may, Mr. Vieri," I replied, placing my hand in his. We danced, slowly. No crowds, no cameras, no danger, just us, the city lights and the music. Our future was not a grand, dramatic plan. It was this staying, building. Much later, after everyone had gone, I found myself back behind the counter. It was clean. The old, burnt-out coffee pots were gone. Cassian was standing by the door, waiting. I picked up a fresh guest check pad. I took the small, stubby pencil, still tied to its string. I did not write a plea. I did not write a name. I wrote a promise. 3 words. "We're not leaving." I slid it across the clean steel counter to him. He picked it up, he read it, and he smiled, that full, genuine smile that transformed his face, the one I had seen only twice before. He folded it once, carefully, and slid it into the inner breast pocket of his suit jacket. Right where the first note had gone, the knot, tied in midnight desperation, was finally undone in the morning light. Thank you so much for listening to our story. We would love to know where you're listening from, so please drop a comment below, share your thoughts, and let us connect. Do not forget to subscribe to Mafia Boss Stories, like this video, and give us extra support by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.